Merry and blessed Christmas, everyone. It is Christmas Eve, and we have so many lovely and familiar Christmas traditions. Certainly gifts is one of them. If you know me, you've probably heard this story, but when my own two children were youngsters, we had a little one-bedroom apartment with no closet space to speak of. I would buy Christmas presents for them and put them in bags behind the couch and throw a blanket over them. I would tell Patrick and Kelsey, this pile is invisible, and they would not go near it. They wouldn't peek, I swear. It's a true miracle of Christmas, I know, because I have friends who tell me that when they were kids, they would search out the presents like bloodhounds in their house. Some even unwrapped them to look at them and then wrapped them back up. None of you did that, did you? No comment. Now, was the integrity of my invisible pile of Christmas gifts secure because they were afraid of my wrath? I don't think so. I'm pretty soft, actually. The kids would say they didn't want to look and see what was under the cloak of invisibility. They didn't want to already know and ruin the surprise on Christmas morning. They wanted to be astounded. And friends, that is both the blessing and the challenge of welcoming the birth of Jesus on this Christmas Eve. Whether we hear today's Gospel of Luke with the angel declaring, "For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord," or if we think of that more mystical Gospel of John, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us." However we read it, we are coming face to face with an astounding miracle, but one that we have long since peeked at under that blanket behind the couch. Our familiarity with the Christmas story is both our blessing and our challenge. A blessing, of course, but with our familiarity, we think we know exactly what to expect and whom to expect. And so our breath is not taken away. And our lives are not necessarily altered today because of it. But Jesus was not just born into the world 2,000 years ago as a one and done. Jesus continues. Emmanuel, God with us, then and now. We have a God who came in our flesh as a vulnerable infant to a human woman, a God who knows our world and our sorrows, not from an ethereal cloud above, but from the straw of the manger and the dirt of the road, the wood of the cross. From flesh to flesh, a mother's breast, a friend's embrace, a desperate person's hand reaching out. Certainly, there are astounding moments in Jesus' story, like at his baptism, when a voice is heard from the heavens saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I take delight." Or the transfiguration, where Jesus shined on the mountaintop with Moses and Elijah. But most of Jesus' story takes place with everyday people, because that is the real miracle. Not that God shines, of course God shines, but that God became flesh, one of us, truly human on this Christmas day. Think about what that means for us humans and be astounded. On a Christmas day, we have the full revelation of God, fully divine and fully human. Don't ever let the miracle of that become commonplace to you. We need that human Jesus among us, where he indeed is. The Canadian author and poet Sarah Klassen captures it in her poem, Incarnation 1, that goes, "God is carnal? Yes. God has got to be flesh and blood, bones too, like any one of us. A child who can't go to sleep in a dark room unless someone is right there beside her. Someone with skin. Embodiment matters. And in his birth, Jesus, coming as one of us, changed the world and changes us with the acknowledgement that being flesh and blood is sacred. Our challenge is to still be so astounded by this miracle of the incarnation, the enfleshment of God's self, that we are changed. We think we know all about the familiar gospel story of the birth of Jesus, and maybe you wish sometimes, like I do, that we saw Jesus in actual flesh and blood these days. Yet, Christians, we do. We must see Jesus in flesh and blood, right here, in all the people. That is the challenge, too, to see that. Who is Jesus for you? Because actually, no one isn't Jesus, according to his own words. Whatever you did for one of these, the least of my people, you did or did not do for me. He made no exceptions. He came to us vulnerable, and he lived out his ministry among the vulnerable, upturning the world order, challenging our priorities, and showing us what matters. Who is Jesus for refugees, for the imprisoned, for the person whose food stamps didn't come, for a stranger seeking asylum and a busy working mother and a stressed young man looking for a job and a homeless family and a lonely neighbor, a person who's grieving, or the person who's sitting beside you right now? You are. And they are themselves too. That is the real mystery of the incarnation. God with us, God within us. Yes, people were expecting the promised Messiah to shine and conquer and not to be a vulnerable infant born on the run to a nondescript family. Not expecting our ordinary flesh and such humble circumstances. That was a challenge then, and it's still a challenge now. Is this Jesus the God that we want? In our culture, built on riches and fame and me and mine first and power at all costs, is this the God we want, an ordinary birth to less than desirables as parents? Then why do we come to the manger? Imagine Jesus being born in the world today, being born at the borders and in the war zones and right here in our town. The incarnation for us 2 millennia later. We who still come to the manger like the shepherds, looking with joy and trembling for Jesus. This is the joy of Christmas that makes us gasp in wonder. Generation upon generation had waited for his coming, and now that star is shining in the east. Can we turn our eyes as they did to the sheer wonder of it? Let it take your breath away, and let it send you forth to live the promise and the challenge of Christmas. Emmanuel, God actually with us, telling us that everyone matters, and calling on us to take care of each other like we believe it. Be astounded and live like we are changed by the coming of the Christ child.